Hello and welcome to yet another author reading from Fated Mates of the Drakoan. My name is Danielle Forrest. I'm an alien romance author and YouTuber. And during these, I read from my alien romance serial. And today we are on episode 21 of Fated Mates of the Drakoan. And apparently my tablet has the sound on. I don't know how. So, anyway, let's get started. Jess screamed as one of them cut her off. She skidded to a halt, pain flaring up from the soles of her feet as the rough ground dug in. There was a sound. It was coming from them, and it sent chills down her spine and goosebumps up and down her skin. It was all around her, overwhelming her. She glanced from side to side, desperately looking for an out. She was too panicked to see much, just shapes in the darkness. There, an opening. She dashed to the side, no longer caring what direction she was going. It didn't matter. All that mattered was escape. As she ran past, she got close enough to see them, close enough that their long, sharp fingers grazed her arm. She sucked in a breath, her mind frozen, expecting pain, but none came. Her feet were on an entirely different wavelength, carrying her away, even as her conscious mind still lingered on that touch. She wanted to stop, to check if he'd caught her. But she didn't dare. Stop and they'd get her. Stop and she'd be dead. As she continued running through the dark, heart pounding so hard it felt like nothing else existed. Like that constant frantic beat was all that was left of her. She was nothing but that heartbeat. And they were going to snuff her out. She just knew it. She couldn't go on like this forever. Eventually she would falter. Eventually she would break. Another blood-curdling cry rent the air, and she flinched. More cries followed in its wake, reminding her of a coyote pack crying out to each other, each new voice just egging the others on until that was all she could hear. It was haunting, chilling, and it made her want to curl up into a ball and cry. It's them, isn't it? The aliens who tried to invade. She didn't know anything about them, but it didn't really matter if it was a human, an alien, or even Bigfoot chasing her. Whoever it was, they were going to catch her. She could feel it in her bones. She was already tired from a long day of hiking, and she could feel her body screaming for a respite. Everything hurt. Her muscles, her skin, her lungs, her head, her heart. Everything. She could feel tears leaking down her cheeks. Her breath sawed in and out over dry, cracked lips. Every step took effort. She cringed every time her foot fell, grinding pain farther and farther into her bones. She groaned every time she had to raise her leg once again, the effort more and more exhausting with each step. Pretty soon, she wouldn't be able to keep going. Pretty soon, it wouldn't matter how scared she was. Got you, something said as it looped a limb around her torso, yanking her off her feet. Its voice had a true horror movie quality to it, like it was a monster about to eat her, and she screamed again. She flailed even though she had nothing left. Kicking and screaming, she tried to squirm out of its grip, but talons dug into her, piercing between her ribs. She gasped, freezing, afraid to do more damage. The sharp pain was intense, focusing, and she didn't know what to do. What could she do? Would fighting back make those talons accidentally puncture a lung, nick an artery? She didn't remember much about anatomy, but she didn't need to know much to know all the vital parts were right around where those claws were piercing her skin. He stopped. And though she didn't see them, she could feel the others approaching, their maniacal, monstrous voices unsettling the night. She shivered, but couldn't bring herself to move. They emerged from the darkness, each of them making noises, but they didn't feel like words. It was the same rough, staccato cadence from before the chase. And she realized they were speaking in their own language. And he spoke English to me. He wanted me to understand. He wanted me to be afraid. She shivered at the realization. None of this was making her feel any better. If they wanted her to be afraid, They were going to draw this out. That could be good if someone was coming to her rescue, but if no one had heard? If everyone was too deep in sleep to hear her screams? It could just mean whatever torture they had planned for her would last longer. Her body throbbed at the thought, reminding her of the torture she'd already put it through. And the longer she was crushed to this alien's chest, the stiffer she got, and the more sensitive her wounds became. For a brief moment, she was actually grateful he was holding her up in the air, if for no other reason than that it kept her feet off the ground. The soles throbbed in pain, and she could feel blood trickling across the swollen skin. But that wasn't the only place with free-flowing blood. Her captor had loosened his grip slightly so that he was no longer piercing her. But that just meant the sharp pain had dulled and made it easier to track the stream of blood from the wounds all the way down her torso to her waistband. How much blood am I losing? Her skin grew cold at the thought, and she hoped it was from the chill of the open air and not something more sinister and dangerous. This isn't helping, Jess. Focus on something else. Anything else. She tensed, experimentally moving her limbs, but each was like a lead weight, stiff and awkward. She was going to hurt later. If there is a later. She flinched. Don't think like that. She forced herself to focus outward, to focus on escape, on the enemies. There wasn't much to see, and their voices had become background noise since she knew nothing about their language or what their tones of voice meant. She tried to pay attention to their body language and facial expressions, though she knew they weren't necessarily universal either. Unfortunately, the shadows were all-consuming, etching them into hard lines that made it impossible to truly see them. She could see neither the color of their skin nor enough detail to erode some of the fear that gripped her. Instead, the unknown caused the fear to clench even tighter around her heart. Focus, Jess. Focus on what you can control. Focus on something useful. But what was useful in a situation like this? What would help her? She thought back to her martial arts training. Martial arts could help her overcome a size imbalance in a fight. Size wasn't everything after all, but she was exhausted and hurting, her limbs awkward and not responding as well as she would like. Even if she tried, would she be able to perform any of the maneuvers? Would it even matter if she did? They weren't designed to defend against aliens. She suspected using her training against aliens was akin to trying to use it against an animal like a wolf or bear. Could it be useful? Maybe if she was desperate enough. Was it likely to be useful? No. Then what the fuck do I do? She wasn't the kind to hope for a knight in shining armor to come and save the day. Even though the team was supposed to protect her, she couldn't rely on them. They weren't here. In the grand scheme of things, the only one she could truly rely on was herself. It didn't matter how much she loved or trusted someone, they weren't always there. They couldn't always be there, and sometimes all they could do was pick up the pieces afterwards. A morbid image popped into her head, one she immediately thrust out of her brain. No. That is going to happen. I'll make it through this. I have to. But then the alien at her back leaned in, his mouth and a disgustingly slimy tongue tickling her ear. We've made a decision, little prey. Do you want to hear what it is? She tensed, and another of those spine-chilling sounds erupted from him, and now she feared she knew what it was. A laugh. He was laughing. That can't be good for me. Jess didn't speak, not sure what to say, not sure what to do, but it seemed he wasn't interested in what she had to say. We're going to eat you, little prey, piece by piece. His free hand trailed down, making her skin crawl. What do you think we should eat first? His claws dug in, piercing her wrist. She cried out at the sharp pain. A hand, maybe. They released, and the sharp claw grazed over her skin lightly, threateningly. Or maybe a finger to start. Wouldn't want to be over too soon. Then he moved his hand. This time his claws ran over her stomach, the sharp points cutting through cloth and causing her to freeze as they touched skin. She couldn't tell if they were cutting her or not. Or maybe we slice you open and turn you into a buffet. Eat your organs while you're still alive. Another laugh filled the air, and again the others joined in, the pack thrilling in her terror. So that was episode 21. Um, I so when I was writing this one, I was in a bit of a dark romance mode. I think I'd read quite a few dark romances at the time, and I was just getting in a little bit into some dark stuff. And while this is not a dark romance, I kind of leaned into that a little bit. You can tell. Went a little bit much. But I think it worked. I think it's fun. Cuz that's But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments or the chat. Um and that's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Do you think that she's going to be rescued? Is she going to figure out how to escape her captors? Let me know. And that's all I've got for you today. And once this is on replay, I will get some. I will. Ah! No, that's not what I wanted. There you go. Once it's on replay, you can tell I'm very rusty. But anyway, once this is on replay, I'll put some end cards on here so that you can check out some more stuff on my channel. And if you like the video, consider giving it a like and subscribing, and I will see you next time.